Hi everyone, it's Patrice from Empowerment Within LLC. I'm coming at you this week with episode 3 of You Can Only Give What You Have, and today we're going to talk about boundaries in the workplace. Boundaries are a challenging thing for many people. It means saying no, it means prioritizing ourselves over others, it means putting ourselves first when it really matters. And this is really challenging for people I've noticed in the helping profession because it means sometimes saying no to our clients. It means sometimes putting ourselves before our work. And a lot of people go into the helping profession because they want to take care of other people. They want other people to be okay. And while that's a wonderful thing to be doing and it's very caring and giving, it also can mean at times that we're sacrificing too much of ourselves. And then in the end, we can't take care of people the way that we want to because we're so burnt out. So we're going to go over a couple bullet points today. And if this is something that you struggle with, I'm really going to encourage you to find somebody to help you work through some of your blocks with boundaries. A lot of people have their own personal blocks, their own personal self-beliefs that kind of get in the way of following through with boundaries themselves. So boundaries really are how we teach other people to treat us. If we don't have boundaries, if we don't have, we're not telling people no, we're not saying I'm not accepting that behavior, I'm not accepting that action, we're kind of teaching them that they can treat us however they so choose and whatever they decide is the right way. And sometimes we can find really wonderful people that don't take advantage of that. And too often we find people that are trying to get their own needs met. And they're going to do that through other people. And so it doesn't necessarily, we don't want to start looking around and being like, that person's bad and this person's good. But what we want to do is check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, like, how do I want other people to treat me? And how am I treating myself to show them that that's the only thing that I will accept? So boundaries are important for a bunch of different reasons. Self-care is one. If we're not taking care of ourselves, we can only give as much as we have. And so if our emotional bank isn't full, if we're not re-energized, it's going to be really hard for us to give clients that. Boundaries are one of the main ways that company changes different kinds of policies. And so I hear a lot of people, guilt is something that often gets in the way of boundaries. I don't want my clients to suffer because I'm trying to set this boundary. And what I tell people is sometimes within reason, we have to set those lines so that our companies can see that changes need to be made. And if they don't see that there's any kind of issue and the only issue is that you're burning out, oftentimes they won't do anything to change it. And so being really firm about, even saying, this is what I'm going to stop doing because I've recognized I'm taking on way too much, or I'm doing way too many things, or I'm taking on too many responsibilities, and this is how it's going to impact your clientele. Is there some way that we can figure something out prior to that happening? Right? So being really clear and concise about your boundaries is essential. And setting boundaries prevents burnout and vicarious trauma. So if you don't know what vicarious trauma is, check out episode 2. It's all about vicarious trauma and secondary traumatic stress. And then burnout is something a lot of caretakers and helpers are very aware of. We often get preached, don't burn yourself out, do this, do that. And then a lot of the companies that we work for don't necessarily support that healthy self-care that we really need to be burnt out, to not get burnt out. And so we ultimately have to be the ones to set those lines and say, hey, this isn't okay. I deserve better, I need better so that I'm able to give what I can to my clients. I know for myself personally, if I am not energized, if I'm not, really centered, I can't do what I can do for clients. And so, it's really important. You have to come first in order for your clients to really do well. You can only burn yourself out and your clients do well for so long until you crash. And that crash looks like having a lack of compassion or a really negative energy. And the reasons you came into the field in the first place all of a sudden disappear and you don't even know why you're there and why you're doing what you're doing because you've been going for so long with no boundaries, and you've been taking on and taking on because you're so compassionate and giving and you want to help others. And ultimately that's getting in the way of you helping yourself. And then you can't help others because you're burnt out. So boundaries are crucial. A lot of people ask me, well, how do I set boundaries, Patrice? How do I tell someone no? And the first thing really is to check in with yourself and know what your values are. Know what's important to you in a workplace. And if you have the opportunity to show up in an interview, really expressing that. A work-life balance is important to me. I'm a team player. I will help out where I can, but there will be times that I say, no, I can't take that extra shift. Knowing different values like respect, honesty, compassion, what are your core values and how are you living those out and how are you expecting those from your employers? Knowing and communicating your boundaries clearly and concisely. What I tell people is often we justify our boundaries. Well, I need this because XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And we go on a long paragraph of why we need something. But, boundaries are best if they're clearly communicated and communicated to the point. I can't take on this extra shift because I need to take care of myself. That's it. A lot of times we justify why we need to take care of ourselves. A lot of times we justify trying to make sure that, we're trying to make ourselves feel like it's okay. It's okay that I set this line because, I really have to do this, this, and this. And when we over justify ourselves, it takes away the point of the boundary itself, is that, this isn't okay. It's not okay that you're asking for this. It's not okay that you've pushed me to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week because we're low staff. That stuff isn't okay. And I'm not going to take that on anymore. So clear, concise, to the point. Expressing when boundaries have been violated is a really important one. And doing that as quickly as possible as you can effectively. So some people, when boundaries are crossed, the reason they don't express anything is because they get really defensive really fast, and they know, well, I don't want to cause a scene, or I don't want to be overly emotional, or I don't want to be, all these different things. And so what I tell people is take the time that you need to recenter, refocus, breathe, so that you can show up to express that in your best self. And so saying, hey, when you did this, it violated this boundary of mine. I need you to be aware of that so that you can start making the changes you need to make so you don't do that again. And another really important thing in setting boundaries, especially in the workplace, is expressing to your supervisors, whoever is above you, how taking care of their employees is really going to impact their organization. Taking care of your employees means that you have higher retention rates, and ultimately that means that the company saves money because they don't have to hire new people, they don't have to train new people, they're not paying overtime because they're understaffed, and they're not burning out the employees they have. It means their clients are going to be happier, which means they're going to get more profit because more people are going to want to come there because they're going to hear the good things. And so I really encourage a lot of people to take that angle, because unfortunately right now, a lot of our focus isn't on employee wellness for employee wellness, but it's on employee wellness for the wellness of the company, and if the company is going to make more money or if they're going to save money. And that's life, and we got to roll with it. And so using that as leverage to say, here's my boundaries, and if you respect them, this is what this can look like for you guys. If you start respecting that your employees can't take on as much work as you've been asking them, you're going to save money in the long run by hiring 1-2 new people than you are by burning out your current staff. And, what gets in the way of us setting boundaries? This is really crucial, and this is kind of the takeaway I want you all to kind of absorb. So what gets in the way for you of setting boundaries? So sometimes it's that guilt of our clients, right? And not wanting to hurt them and wanting to make sure that they're okay. A lot of times, though, it's our own blocks and self-belief. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth that. Our self-value is directly represented in our boundaries. If we aren't setting boundaries with people, it often means that we don't feel we deserve to have those boundaries in ourselves. And that is a direct reflection on how we see ourselves. And so, what I'd really encourage everybody to do in this coming week before we hit into 2020 is to sit down and ask yourself, why am I not setting boundaries? Why am I accepting this? A lot of times we'll say, well, because it's our clients and we want to make sure that they're okay. That's wonderful. But also check in with yourself and say, why am I not taking care of myself? What's getting in the way of me taking care of myself? Some people can do this and they walk away and they kind of know how to work on stuff. Other people get stuck and they just feel blocked and they don't know what's going on. And for those people, you got to reach out and you got to find somebody to support you through that process so you really are able to do the best that you can. Helpers are crucial in our society. They're what make our society run, and unfortunately, they're often the least valued. And we have to start valuing ourselves in order to have others value us. We'll find people who can see our value, and that's so wonderful when it happens spontaneously. But you have to find that value in yourself so you can stand up and say, I'm not going to accept this, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's right, so that we can start making some of these shifts in our company cultures to make differences. I hope that this was helpful for you all. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to kind of discuss with you. Thanks.